For me, I had traveled quite a bit in my life before this. I just started to settle down in Omaha, and it was important for me and my family to establish a few roots. I had just had my third child, Grace, and I had traveled a lot in my profession, and we just needed to stop moving. And so we had a great faith community that I had established, attending this church that I'm at now, Lutheran Church of the Master. And I really didn't want to uproot my family from their true faith community. This was really our home, and something we poured our life into for 3 to 4 years. And we had several Bible studies that my wife and I were attending and leading. I was beginning to fill pulpits from time to time in the area. This was just a place we wanted to be, and where my family wanted to raise our children. My parents are here, and my family's here. It's where I belong right now. And so part of what we wanted to do with seminary was find a way for me to stay rooted in my true faith community, where I would be held accountable, where I could still be a coach, or I could still be engaged in the community around me and still be there for my family, and still get the training, the confessional Lutheran training that was desperately needed in our community. And that was becoming difficult, period, to find at a seminary around the country. But to find a place that would deliver that to me where I was, while I was living out my faith here, was the goal. And we had no idea what was out there. We didn't know. Maybe this wasn't a possibility. Maybe this wasn't going to happen. So we started that path, and it was just so happened that when we started to look, that's when ILT was just beginning to take root. Well, first and foremost, I have been to campuses. Obviously, I've gone to my bachelor's. I've been on 2 university campuses. I've lived the campus life. There's no question. I get it. I understand it. I have my group of friends that I formed for attending the campus itself. But it really wasn't my home. It really wasn't where I belonged. It was a temporary place where I kind of spent my time. I kind of protected myself, knowing that I'd be leaving soon. What the technology has allowed me to do is stay in my own faith community, my true faith community. My parents are able to engage me regularly. I have 2,000 congregants who engage in my material almost daily, certainly weekly. I had told you about an incident where I was memorizing the small catechism, and those around me knew this. They wanted me to learn it. They were invested in me. They were accountable to me. I'm one of theirs. And so they would grab my small catechism out of my hand and say, all right, let's hear it. I don't think I would get that if I was at location. This is something that allowed me to stay home, to really pour everything I had, not into my schoolwork, but also to start delivering it to the people that I understood, that I belonged to, in a community that I understood their culture. And so, though I was in the ivory tower or the higher thought process, that very hour, I had to come right back home and deliver it to the people here. So I think the very first piece of the technology that we use and how important it is that you can stay in your true faith community. That was huge. The second piece of the delivering of the technology that was huge for me is that I could go to a comfortable place with all of my resources around, or I could focus in on the classwork. If I was at work, I could take the class. If I was at home, I could take the class. If I was at a conference, I could take the class. If I was on vacation, I could take the class. If I was on mission to Europe or Haiti, as long as I had an internet line, I could take the class. You are eliminating excuses, and you are expanding the opportunity so that I can receive the information in ways that I never could before. If I didn't show up on time at a certain location, at a certain place, I was not getting the material. Also, what's nice is that I can get to the archives. if I miss something or if I need to go backwards in time to look at the material again, the platform is just built for you to be able to go back, replay it again, and take deeper, stronger notes and then be ready for the next class. And there were many occasions where other students and I would go backwards, re-listen to a class, and see if the questions we had were answered and we just missed it. So these are incredible opportunities that I've never had anywhere else. And we have that ability because of the platform. When you are attending a traditional campus, you are talking about meeting up with people that are maybe working that day, and so you need to get together. Or they're on the other side of town, or they're doing something on Sunday and can't physically get together. What we were talking about in the meeting yesterday is, well, someone from Canada was looking to hook up with someone from Texas, was looking to talk to someone from Minnesota, was looking to meet someone from Nebraska who wanted to get together with someone overseas. This is our conversation at our seminary. It isn't that neighborhood, this neighborhood, or where they're living. It's we can get together in ways that cannot possibly be imagined. So how do we communicate with one another? How do we get to know one another? The technology allows us, first, we have this little chat area where we're able to communicate during the class. This has been very important for us. I think from the word go, we continue side conversations and engage with one another throughout the class itself. So if we have questions, we can ask one another, we can talk with one another. This is the first point. We can actually talk to one another during class, just like any other institution. But this allows us to do it in a way that I've never been able to do before. If I have a question, I can send it to any other student in the class, and when they're ready, they can respond to it. We can hold a conversation while the material is being taught, and it just enhances what we're doing. It allows us to get to know one another. That's the first step. Second, we have a beautiful student lounge, which we all use, where we can just go online, we can see each other, we have a whiteboard, we have all the technology we need, and you can spend hours talking with one another at like a digital bar, a digital library, a digital coffee house, where we can go in and do these things. We don't buy each other coffee per se and sit in couches, but our presence that matters most is around one another. And we have spent hours sometimes together away from class in the student lounges, talking with one another. So you begin to get to know each other that way as well. Also, the technology today is pretty amazing. We Skyped one another, we call one another, we email one another, we talk with one another, we text one another, we Facebook one another. Just about everything you would do in a normal week if you were living in the same town, we do on a national scale. And so that helped out a lot. The third piece is we get together from time to time. We have theological conferences, we have classes during the summer, we have different opportunities to get together as well. What's interesting about it all, which is something I didn't think, I had been with my other classmates, again, those first years. I have 3 or 4 students that I've really bonded with, the same as any other seminary. And we were getting together in Minnesota for our first theological conference. And we were in class the night before. I can't remember the full topic, but I think part of the joking end of it was talking about creation, whether it itself groans for God, whether it is an active participant in helping worship and honor God, and whether it actually looks and is helping mankind see God. And just one of those side conversations you might have in theology. And so John, one of my friends, had asked, well, what about animals? Do they go to heaven? These types of fun kind of questions you ask. Well, we ended the class then. We met a day later, and as soon as we saw one another, it wasn't, hey, my name is John, or hi, I'm Becky, nice to finally see you, this is who I am. We just continued our conversation. We thought each other were taller than what we thought, because you can't really get that on screen, but we immediately engaged in what we talked about before. We weren't trying to get to know each other. We already know each other. We were continuing the conversation that we had had the night before. So whether we were there physically in person or there in a digital form, it just flowed one to the other. And so it was an amazing experience, and it really taught me that you can connect with others without having to be at a certain place. It certainly wasn't the easiest way to go. And why I say that is, you have a professor who is very good at what they do. Matter of fact, they probably are some of the few in the country, if not the world, that do what they do, and the knowledge they have. And there's only a few of you sitting there. So you can't hide. You're right there. And so you are engaged more by the professors. They look you in the eye, many of them who wrote the material that you're engaged in, that is the national or world standard on what you're doing, and they ask you, well, what did you think of chapter 2? You can't hide in the back of the class. You can't pretend like your mic isn't working. You are on the hook. And so I think what the technology has done and what the class sizes that we have, and because that each professor can see us and engage in us in this way, it caused us to read more than we ever have before. It caused us to be prepared more than I ever have before. And of course, whenever you read and prepare, and you can engage the professor one-on-one almost on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, a lot of good things happen. And I think it was the most difficult part of my education experience. Not because it wasn't good, it was because of the way it was delivered, because of the class sizes. It absolutely required you to be ready, because they were going to ask. I think what was different than any other school that I've gone to is that those involved in the Institute of Lutheran Theology, all the different aspects of what we do, is that they are there not for a career. They are there to launch something that's very passionate to them. They are there not for fame or wealth or profit. They are there to truly teach the students what they passionately love. Many of them retired, some of them very young, some in the midst of their life, but they are there solely to have a seminary emerge that passes on what they truly love. And that is so clearly felt and understood. They truly want you to know the material, to love the material, to understand who Christ is, to understand it from a Lutheran confessional theology. It is incredible, and I have never been a part of something more passionate when it comes to the professors. And so, in order to make that happen, the professors go way out of their way to make sure they are accessible, that they answer every question, that they stay longer. This isn't a job. This is what they love. They're called to do. And again, I've never seen anything like it. That's what the connection will be with the professors. They will look you in the eye, and they will want you to know what they know. And that's something else. That is a great feature of the relationship that we have with the faculty. And when I first started out, I quoted a ton of scripture in my sermons. I do, of course, maintain a large scripture set in every sermon, but I basically just went from one scripture to another. I didn't have a voice. I didn't have the depth. I didn't have an understanding of the great history, the theology that also came with the Word. As I've gone on now, I've been able to support and teach and just bring that breadth of wonderful apostolic history to what I speak, what I teach, the depth, and it has been amazing. And I don't have any specific stories to tell you other than individuals coming up and saying, this has just been amazing, watching the process from where you started to where you are now. When you're looking for a seminary, be very careful on where you choose. I think you need to do a lot of research in who the professors are, what they stand for, because just as an individual believes in a certain way, has a certain faith, has a religion to them, same as with the seminary, the institution. They will be doctrinating a certain philosophy, a certain practice, and a certain belief into your life. And so we need to be very careful when we go out and look for a school for our seminary students. And I believe the ILT has a very particular faith in what they believe in Jesus Christ and what they teach their wonderful students, the wonderful deep tradition of the Lutheran confessions and the Word. And so if that is something that you want to hold to and promote, it is something that is rarer than you might think. And it is something that ILT aspires to. And I applaud that. And I'm happy that I went there. Now, how are you? Are you a learner? Are you someone who's going to dedicate the time and practice? I don't know if this is what you want to hear or not, but I think the Institute is actually harder than a traditional seminary in many ways, in that you are not taken away from what God has already given you as a responsibility. You still have a job in most cases. You still have your family around you. You still have your coaching community. You are not cheating life in order to go to seminary. You are being kept where you belong, I believe, developing, growing, and this can be difficult at times to pull that off, to live that. And then on top of that, you have this wonderful seminary that truly does care, truly wants to teach you, truly wants to make sure you have the material inside of you. And so whenever I'm asking or wanting someone to move into the ILT, I'm looking for passionate people, because I believe it takes a passionate individual who wants to stay rooted in their local community, who has a passion for serving the Lord, and really not just getting a piece of paper on the wall. I can send you to many schools to do that. Passionately wants to actually learn what they're about to engage in. If I have a student that meets all of that wants to stay in their community, that's involved in their local church, that has a passion for learning what they really want to learn, like you're actually going to learn at this seminary. They're going to look you in the eye. There's no escaping it. You're going to have to learn this material. And you are looking beyond school. You are looking to fulfill God's call in your life. I think that's a great fit for the Institute of Lutheran Theology, because you will leave a changed person. You will leave better than what you began. You will sink deeper into Christ, and it's a wonderful experience.